mother every day. But this special day set aside for that. For some, we can do it in person. For others, we have to do it with knowing they're gone. And so I remember the first one after my mother died. It seemed weird to celebrate Mother's Day after that because didn't have nobody to go see. So we honor this mother now in our house. So anyway, let's look at everyone's favorite passage on Mother's Day. This has got to be the favorite. Proverbs 31. And all the women say, ugh. Proverbs 31. One of the reasons I think why women in particular say, ugh, is because it's been preached as a standard and kind of like a checklist. And so depending on who's preaching it, sometimes it gets preached like it's the Ten Commandments. And these are laws, and how are you doing and keeping the law? And that's what happens every time someone slips into legalism anyway. Actually, it's not prescriptive, it's descriptive. Solomon's or whoever wrote it, I don't think Solomon wrote this one, but they're just describing what a godly woman looks like. And it's not a checklist, just like the fruits of the Spirit or gifts of the Spirit are not a checklist. Even the fruits of the Spirit aren't a checklist. Don't get the fruits of the Spirit and go down and say, well, let's see, how am I doing on this? Ooh, patience, not too good. I'm going to have to work on that one. Let's see. No, that's not what, it's descriptive. It's not prescriptive. So because of that, we're going to skip every bit of Proverbs 31 except for one verse. So let your tension go. Just settle down, breathe a little. And I want to do it for a couple of reasons. One is the makeup of our church is most of the women here, most of the mothers here, your kids are grown. And so you're in either the grandparent stage or great-grandparent stage. And so things are a little different for you than they would be for someone like Heather who has little ones. And what I want to talk about today is something that can be an issue for a mother of any age, of any stage. And that is the issue of beauty. What makes a beautiful mother? And, if you watch television, Linda was sharing with us how much she appreciates television today. But you can't watch television, especially Hallmark, I don't know about Family Channel, but Hallmark, there will be an ad with some new miracle treatment or ointment that can turn back the hands of time. And they'll have some old model on there who they've dressed up really good, and she's talking about this miracle cure. And, whatever it is, the one that I've seen before is some cantaloupe in France. And they make this miracle ointment out of this cantaloupe from France. It's only grown in France. And they only sell to this one company. But if you can get this one company's ointment that's made out of cantaloupe, it turns back the hands of time. And when we were on our trip, I told you I was going to sprinkle our trip in along the way. When we were on the trip, we were introduced to a miracle cure for turning back the hands of time. Donkey milk. Y'all haven't heard of donkey milk? I hadn't either till we got over there. And over there, everything's made out of donkey milk. And so they say, oh, it's got donkey milk. Oh, it's healing. It's all this. And it's the miracle ointment. Well, I don't know if donkey milk's... Have you tried your donkey milk? Okay. Yes, she did drink from the fountain of youth. And she's been spry ever since. But this donkey milk stuff, everywhere you go, everything's made of donkey milk. Toothpaste made of donkey milk. lotion made of donkey milk. All that stuff women put on, made out of donkey milk. Just donkey milk everywhere. Now, is donkey milk that good? I don't know. I've never heard of it before I made that trip, and certainly don't know if it's ever been tested. But it's the same motivation behind it all. And the motivation is, I want to be forever young. And I want to look beautiful. Now, here's the thing. We live in a culture today that values youth and beauty, and values it to the point that there are people who will encourage you to do whatever it takes. Spend however much you need to do what will make you look youthful and beautiful. Now, here's the problem with that. Biology doesn't cooperate with culture. And see, biology is always going to win. So while you're fighting the battle of time and aging, gradually you're going to be giving up ground, because that's called biology. As we age, we change. Things change. Wrinkles come. Spots show up on your skin. Hair falls out. Bellies get big, and all that other kind of stuff. Whatever the parameters of beauty are that the culture's promoting at that time are going to become more and more and more and more difficult to meet, because the body wasn't designed that way. Our culture's designed that way because we treasure youthfulness and beauty. And so since that's the case, any promise of a miracle discovery, people are going to line up for, even if there's nothing to it. And we all have seen celebrities on television who've been through that one facelift too many. And you say, boy, should have held off on that one. Well, they did that. Y'all remember Kenny Rogers when he did that? The first time I saw Kenny Rogers after his facelift, I didn't know who he was. But he was singing Kenny Rogers songs. And I was like, man, that guy can sing Kenny Rogers songs pretty good, but that's not Kenny Rogers. But it was. He just had one facelift too many. So this ongoing battle and quest to be forever young, to be forever beautiful. If all you focus on is physical beauty, you're going to lose. Now, the good news is God has given us a way, ladies, to look better with age. And so we're going to start with Proverbs 31:30. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, unless you have donkey milk and those magical cantaloupes. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So you're starting to get the gist of it here. A woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So Proverbs 31 is not always a favorite passage on Mother's Day, because it becomes a list of ideals that we're not living up to, rather than just a description of what a godly woman looks like. The world constantly bombards us with ideas about beauty. And so we have all these products promising eternal youth. Oh, return back the hands of time. Oh, you look as good as you did in your 20s. Oh, you get it. And so all these promises are made, but none of them can deliver. And so, like I said a minute ago, does donkey milk work? I don't know. Probably not. But it raises a question. Are we looking for beauty in the wrong places? The Bible teaches us a better way. True beauty is not skin deep. True beauty is soul deep. It flows from a heart that fears and honors God. Unlike physical beauty, which fades with time, godly beauty grows stronger and more radiant with each passing year. So what does this beauty look like? Well, let's take a moment and look at 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3, and while you're turning to that or while it's getting pulled up, you know, there's so much emphasis today on looking good, and there's so much out there that can help people look good that a lot of times people will present themselves as being hyper attractive, but then when you get around them and get to know them, what you encounter is far from attractive. Have you ever noticed that when you're around somebody like that their outer beauty fades? I mean, it's kind of like somebody who maybe said, I want to meet this movie star. Oh, I want to meet this. Oh, she's so beautiful. I want to meet this movie. Or he's so handsome or whatever. And they finally meet him and they're a jerk. And they walk away from that saying, I could have done without that. Well, it wasn't that their looks changed. It was that inner self, that inner life, that character that was so ugly. We were part of a youth thing here in Dothan many years ago. And the guy who put it together wanted to have this rather big name at the time, music act come to town to be part of this youth function. So the guy wasn't cheap, and he didn't cut us no slack on the bill, but he paid. They got the money together and paid the guy. And at the time, he had a record out that was really good. It was all worship style, praise and worship style music. It was really good. And so we kind of had expectations of what he must be like to hang around. And we were all looking forward to being with him. And so the youth thing started up the first day. He wasn't here. He was just going to fly in, do his thing, and fly out the next day. And so we started the day before, and the guy who put it all together, he invited a local band, not local here, but just a small town band from Huntsville or somewhere up that way, that were as country as the day is long. And they came down and they did the music the first night. The kids absolutely loved them, fell in love with them. And they even, one of the things that won the crowd over was they took Sweet Home Alabama and put Christian words to it. And so they got up there and they'd start doing those riffs and the crowd would just go crazy. And Sweet Home Hallelujah is all I remember about the line. But they had changed all the words and made them all, oh my goodness, every time they did the riffs, the place would just go wild. Kids loved them. They did praise and worship music. It was great. Everybody was having a good time. And so the next day, I went with the guy who's the organizer to pick up this big name fellow. And so we went over to the local airport and picked him up. And he comes off, it was in the middle of summer. He comes off with this big coat on. And he's got a hat on, and it's pulled way down, and sunglasses. Why do you think? The fans. Oh, they'll be flooding him and wanting his autograph and everything else. There weren't no fans there. And so he gets in the car, and we get all in the van, and we get all this stuff in the van. And we're riding down the road, and we're just engaging in small talk. And then he dropped the name of a preacher that was his best friend, who was very anti-charismatic. And when I heard that, I said, uh-oh. And so we get to the Civic Center, and he had sent this thing ahead. He brought his manager, too, which was kind of weird, but had to pay for that, too. And then he had sent ahead this long list of things that he expected to be in his hotel room waiting for him and backstage at the Civic Center waiting for him. And it wasn't a short list. And it was certain kinds of water, certain kinds of fruit, and all that kind of stuff. And the other guys, they just hung out with us. From the other band, they just, whatever y'all eat's good with us, But it had to be certain things and everything. And so when we get him to his hotel, he runs in his room and shuts the door. And we're kind of standing there like, okay. And so we knock on the door. Are you going to let us in? Or are you coming out? He said, go see my manager first. Okay. So we went to see his manager, and the manager said, we want the money up front. Okay. And he wasn't going to come out till the manager went over and told him, it's okay. So the manager went over and told him, it's okay. And he opened the door. Hey, nice to meet you. It's so great to be in town. Boy, we're going to have a great concert tonight, and blah, 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 blah. And I was already done. I was done. And so I said, okay, whatever. And we finally got him in the van. And he comes out of his room with that big old coat on again. Cap pulled down, big old sunglasses, in case there were any fans lurking in the lobby. And this is in July, okay. So we get over to the Civic Center, and that band's up there getting with it, and the kids are just going wild. They're having a great time loving this local band. And when it got done, we get there, he runs in the dressing room and closes the door. And so we said, well, do you want to come out and just kind of get a feel for what's going on? No, I'll be out when it's time. So he's hiding in his dressing room, and his manager is watching everything. And when it's time, he goes and knocks on the door. It's time. And he comes busting out the door. All right, let's go. Praise the Lord here. Let's go. And he gets out on stage, and he's just doing his thing. And the audience was like this. And I was like this, standing backstage. Because all that expectation, oh man, this is going to be so great. Man, this guy, he's in tune with the Lord. He's got all this great music. Oh, it's going to be a wonderful experience. I was looking at the outer. But once I got to see the inner, I didn't want the outer anymore. And see, sometimes this battle that especially women tend to go through about, am I still beautiful? You know, I'm older now. Maybe I look in the mirror and I don't see the 20-year-old me anymore. Am I still beautiful? And what God would say is, if you're doing this, you are. And you know what? I've been around women who were older, and they lived according to this, what we're about to read. And they were more beautiful, more pleasant to be around than if you marched in a model who was stuck on herself. Okay? So let's see what he says here about how to be a beautiful mother or a wife or woman in general. 1 Peter 3, verses 1 and 2 says, wives, in the same way, submit yourselves to your own husbands. Notice he said submit to your husband, not someone else's. Which causes a lot of trouble. And the reason it causes a lot of trouble is it usually is a precursor to a split. Because what will happen is the scenario may be something like, he's just not that spiritually attuned, but then there's so-and-so at church, man, he's like Billy Graham incarnate. You know, I mean, he is just super spiritual, and he's got all the answers, and he speaks to me, and he speaks to my needs, and he gives me wisdom and everything else. And what happens is they begin to submit to him and cut off submission over here. And it isn't long before there's going to be problems over here. So I think it's interesting. Peter said, submit to your own husband, not someone else. So that if any of them do not believe the word. Now, traditionally, historically, I've always heard that associated with someone who was lost. But I think that there's times when someone who is saved, a man who's saved may be struggling in his walk with the Lord, and the same could apply there. Or maybe he's been exposed to something in the word that he just doesn't want to submit to. And so the same could be applied there, the same principle. that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over through much nagging and complaining. No, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. So true beauty isn't about what you say, but about what you do. Your actions speak louder than your words. Mothers often demonstrate this so powerfully in their sacrifices, their care, their perseverance, and their unwavering love for their children. Peter tells wives, and by extension mothers, that their influence comes through reverence and purity of heart. A woman whose life reflects respect and godliness communicates volumes to her family and everyone watching her. So, words, actions speak louder than words. Now here's the question. Do we trust that? Or do we feel like sometimes we got to help God out? So I'm going to nag, I'm going to wag my finger, I'm going to do... I can't tell you how many couples I've ran into that there was some kind of issue going on, and instead of the wife doing this, she was preaching at him, nagging him, telling him off, and then she couldn't figure out why he wasn't responding. Actions speak louder than words. Number 2, true beauty comes from within. So 1 Peter 3, verses 3 and 4. Your beauty should not come from outward adornments such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. So you have to get rid of all that Sorelli stuff. No, just kidding. Rather, it should be that your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. Culture teaches us to obsess over appearances, but Peter reminds us that real beauty is inward. It's found in a gentle spirit. Now, what is a gentle and quiet spirit? A peaceful spirit. You know, one reason why husbands don't want to go home at night is because it's chaos. So a gentle and quiet spirit enhances that inner beauty. And then lastly, Peter provides us with 3 characteristics that define true godly beauty. And so this is kind of a summary of those. Number 1, submission. Number 2, they're peaceful. And number 3, they're not fearful. Now, why did I add the fearful one there? Right now, today, the research shows, and this is Pew Research, that young adults are choosing not to marry. And right now, 80% of young males who are up to 30 years old are not only not interested in marriage, they're not even dating. So we got a problem. The people have tried to find out what's going on, you know, why things change, and they come up with a number of reasons. But one of the big reasons that comes up is this: fear. Fear they won't make it. Fear the relationship's going to fall apart. Fear of divorce. And so it's much easier just to not get married than to take a risk. Well, we know from a biblical worldview that's not a good thing. So, as I often harp on around here, we have a responsibility, when we can, to instruct others in what is true. Now, being single all your life, unless God calls you to that, is not a good thing. The Bible tells us that. So, but at the same time, there may be traits that a person has that are so abrasive that nobody wants to be with them. So we need to deal with that. with that issue. Now, what does that mean? As we honor mothers today, let me also issue a challenge. And I do this, again, with in mind that most of our mothers have grown children and are now grandparents or great-grandparents. So this isn't necessarily directed to us as much as it is an encouragement for us to seek to have a difference or make a difference in the life of someone who doesn't know this stuff, someone who doesn't understand what true beauty is, someone who is needing help in parenting or making their marriage work. And a person came to mind who illustrates this, Brenda Gant. Y'all know who she is? She's the grandmother of Andalusia, who had a bunch of young ladies in church come to her all the time saying, hey, will you teach me how to cook? Will you teach me how to cook? I don't know how to cook. And I got a family now, and I still don't know how to cook. And so they came to her because they knew she knew how to cook. And their daughter got with her and said, there's no way you're going to be able to teach each person individually how to cook. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make a YouTube video. And you do a cooking lesson, and we'll put it up and tell them where it is, and they can just go watch it there. And so she said, okay. And so her daughter set up her iPhone and said, all right, go to it. And so she went through this basic cooking lesson, and they put that video up, and it went viral. And so today she has this huge following of people who come to her trying to find out how to cook. And I guess she may be branching into some other things now too. But that's what I'm talking about here, about what I just call this passing the torch. See, a lot of this stuff I've said today, you know. You know what inner beauty is. You know what it takes to be a person of inner beauty. You know what it takes to focus on that rather than just trying to fight the losing battle of always looking 21. But there's a lot of people out there who don't know that. There's a generation coming up, many of whom have never been taught any quote-unquote domestic skills. They don't even know how to boil water unless they put it in the microwave. And I'm not knocking them. I mean, folks can only know what they know. But what I'm saying is, most people in this room have enough knowledge that you could help turn someone's life around and perhaps help their marriage make it. That's our challenge with this. And so I do honor our mothers today. I'm thankful for my mother. I'm thankful for all the godly mothers who are here. But we don't need to forget there's a generation coming up that needs to be trained in how to be godly mothers too. And that's Titus chapter 2, where Paul says, old men, teach the young men. Old women, teach the young women. And then he details what he wants them to teach. So true beauty is inner beauty. Doesn't matter how good the outside looks. If the inside's rotten, the outside will soon follow suit. And you may be like those buildings I talked about last week, where the bottom floor is an incredible showroom. Trendy, modern. I mean, anything you want there, lighting's perfect, everything's great on the first floor. On the second floor, the roof's falling in. Wires hanging out of the ceiling. So, I guess if I'm using that analogy, it's time to complete the other floors. because we've got a lot of people around us who just don't know. So I encourage you to be like Brenda Gant. Find somebody who needs what you've got, needs your wisdom. Share it. Somebody needs what you have. Don't. If you don't share it, you die with it. And that's not a good place to be. I'd hate to know that I knew something and refused to share it, and it cost somebody else. All right. Well, Lord, thank you for today. I thank you for your many blessings. I thank you for these mothers. And as we are about to give out these gifts, I pray your blessing upon them. In Jesus' name, amen. Well,